In this tutorial, we will learn two methods in Blender to create random cracks, one using the Cell Fracture add-on, and another method using a simple shader node tree, without any add-on. So we can start with this model for example. In the first method, we will use the Cell Fracture add-on, which comes by default with Blender, and you can see it in the Object menu, under this Quick Effects. But if you can't see it, you may need to first enable it, so go to this add-on Preferences. Then search for Cell Fracture, and enable it from here. But before we use this, we need to verify the wireframe of our object. We can see that this text area has got a lot of subdivisions, while the rest is almost blank. So we need to add enough subdivisions here, so that the entire object has a uniform level of subdivisions. Now, let's run the Cell Fracture function. You'll see many options available here, but we need to change only a few of them. Let us keep this number as 100, but we need to increase this recursion number, maybe to 2 or 3. The purpose of this is to slice the blocks recursively until there are enough number of blocks, and select this big option as well, so that the bigger blocks are always picked up first for slicing. Then let's increase this number, maybe to 500. So this number is basically the total number of blocks or pieces that we'll get. This can take some time to run, based on the parameters we have set, which is cool to watch as well, so we did not skip this part. Once it's over, we can set the Auto Smooth option for all the selected objects. And now we can hide or delete this original cube. So this looks nice. We have a good number of cracks or fractures visible because of these segments. But if we go to the rendered view mode, we'll notice that the cracks are not clearly visible, they are very light. That's because the cracks have the same material as that of the original object. So we need to make some changes here. Let us first undo this and bring back the original object. Then in the Materials tab, we can see that the object has only one material. So let's add another slot and create a new material. The first material is tagged with index 0, and this is index 1. Let's change the color of this material to complete black. Then, we'll go to the Object menu and invoke the Cell Fracture function like before. But this time, we will increase this margin value to say 0.004. And we'll also change this material index to 1, so the inner surface of each block will take up our black material, which is at index 1. Once this is complete, we can hide or delete the original object. Now you can see that the cracks are clearly visible, since the cracks are now wider, and the inner sides are all black. Let's select the objects together, and then apply the Shade Auto Smooth option for a better appearance. Now, there are some disadvantages of this Cell Fracture method. You can see that there are many separate objects here, which may not be always desired, and it takes more time to render. And sometimes, when you apply Cell Fracture, you'll see that some pieces are absolutely missing here, which is a big problem. So let's look at the second method, which is error-free, and also easy to implement. In this method, we won't create any physical crack, we will create everything through the shader editor. So the source object does not change, it stays like a single object. If we open the shader editor here, we'll see that we have a principled BSDF by default. And for the cracks, we have to only manipulate this normal socket. So we need some nodes here. First we need a texture coordinate node, which should be connected to a Voronoi texture, and the Voronoi type should be distance to edge. This will go to a color ramp node for filtering. We need to bring this white handle toward the black end. It should have a very low value, almost close to 0. Then the color output will go to the height of this bump node. The strength can be 5, and the distance can be 1. Finally, this normal output will go to the normal input of our main shader or the principled BSDF. So we'll see that some cracks are visible on our target object, but we can also see that the cracks are somewhat distorted. That is because the object has got non-uniform scale factors. So select the object, then go to the Object menu, and apply the scale factors. Then in the shader editor, instead of the generated output, we have to connect this object output to the Voronoi texture. With this simple fix, we'll see that the cracks are looking quite perfect. You can also customize these cracks easily, which is not possible with Cell Fracture. First, you can change this value to control the crack thickness. If we reduce this value to say 0.005, the crack lines will become very thin. But this may not be very prominent in the render output, so let's change it to 0.01. Then if we change the scale factor in the Voronoi texture, the crack size or the density will change. With a higher scale factor, we'll get a dense pattern that is smaller cracks with higher density. Let's use a value of 3 for our case, for medium-sized cracks. You can also use your own material here and still create the cracks, because this method is flexible, it only manipulates the normals. So instead of this principled BSDF, let's say we use a glossy BSDF, which has got some specific color as well. Any such shader can be used, all we have to do is connect this normal to the final normal. And we'll get the same crack pattern with the desired color or the desired material. If you want to make these crack lines darker like the previous case, we have to mix this shader with another black shader. So let's move this material output node and add 2 more nodes here. This should go to the second socket of the mix shader, and this diffuse BSDF should go to the first socket. Let's change its color to complete dark or black. And then, for the mix factor of the mix shader, we need to bring the output of the same color ramp node we used for the normal. And this will then go to the final output. The result of this entire node tree is here. We can see that the cracks have a better contrast, and they are more prominent. So you can easily create some random cracks with this method. It will look even better if you render it with cycles, as it's more capable than EV. So thanks for watching our tutorials, and don't forget to subscribe to this channel.